Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more detailed videos. Ava Jerome arrived in Port Charles under a veil of mystery, her elegance and sophistication immediately setting her apart. But behind the polished exterior there was grit, an undercurrent of guilt, ambition, and vulnerability. She hailed from the infamous Jerome crime family, a legacy that cast a long shadow over every choice she made. The world she entered was one where power, betrayal, and consequences collided. From the moment she stepped into the room, we sensed this was a woman who could both captivate and terrify. In her early days, Ava played the part of a savvy art dealer, someone who understood the finer things. The steak dinners, the gallery openings, the whispers of deals done behind closed doors. But soon we learned her ties to the underworld ran deep. She was revealed as the daughter of Victor Jerome and Delia Ryan, the sister of Julian Jerome, heir to a mob legacy. That heritage shaped her. It gave her confidence, arrogance, and a sense of entitlement. It also gave her a baggage she could not easily discard. Her entry into town was strategic. Through her daughter, Kiki, Ava targeted the Quartermain fortune. She used ambiguity, charm, and manipulation. She engaged in schemes, blackmail, corporate takeovers, hidden identities. She aligned herself with the game of power, mob politics, corporate control, emotional leverage. She was ruthless when she had to be. She framed others, pulled the trigger metaphorically and literally. She refused to play small. She was born to dominate. But in doing so, she earned enemies. She made mistakes that would haunt her. In her pursuit of influence and security, Ava committed acts beyond redemption. Or so it seemed. She shot Connie Falconeri, framed A.J. Quartermain, covered up murders, drove her son-in-law's mental illness toward tragedy by tampering with his medications. She played both mob queen and wounded mother. For a time, she enjoyed the power, manipulating Sonny Corinthos, managing the Jerome Godfather dynamics, positioning herself as the queen of Port Charles. And yet, each victory came with a cost. Trust evaporated, alliances collapsed, and the people she claimed to love began to question whether she truly loved them, or only loved what she could gain. But the arc of Ava's story is not solely one of villainy. In many ways, her path became one of reckoning. She lost her daughter Kiki through murder. She faced the consequences of her betrayals. She was burned, not just physically when the warehouse fire engulfed her and left her scarred, but emotionally, deeply. Her face became a map of what she had done and what she endured. Custody battles for Avery, the daughter she co-parents with Sonny and Carly, forced her to examine her priorities. On the island of Cassadine, in prison cells, in dark corners of her psyche, she began to shift. The question became, could this woman, who once exploited so many, find a way out of her own darkness? Redemption for Ava did not come swiftly. It arrived in fragments, a moment of softness with her daughter, a fleeting alliance with those she once hurt, a refusal, barely a whisper at first, to reduce everything to a power move. She began to act not just for herself, but for the child she barely knew and the legacy she forever tried to rewrite. In one of her most human turns, she faced terminal illness, leukemia. Suddenly, the iron-fisted mob scion was vulnerable. Her mortality confronted her. Her reflection betrayed her. She had to face the possibility that the last word of her story might not be written by her, but by the disease she could neither charm nor manipulate. That moment became a turning point. It wasn't a sudden transformation. Ava didn't wake up singing hymns. Instead, she weakened. She reflected. She started to ask why, more often than what's next. She made attempts, reckless in their beginning, to reconnect. She laid down some weapons, though not all. She began to measure whether power was worth the cost. She began to live under the weight of her past, rather than ignore it. The women she betrayed, the men she manipulated, the children she endangered, they all remained part of her story. But now the question was, what do you do when the person you betrayed is yourself? In recent chapters, Ava's attempts at redemption became more visible. She fought to regain custody of Avery, not solely for leverage, but from something deeper, a mother's fear of being forgotten, of being irrelevant. Her relationship with Sunny evolved from adversary to uneasy co-parent, with history thick between them, yet necessity forcing cooperation. She tried to be honest. With herself, with her daughter, with those she once deceived. She tried to stand in the light attached to a crime family and ask, "Can I step out of my father's shadow?" None of this means she became saintly overnight. Her mistakes continue to ripple. Trust remains damaged. Many say she'll always be the monster she once was. But perhaps the question isn't whether she can erase the past. Maybe it's whether she can live despite it, with more humility, more awareness, a little less greed. She's still flawed, that's the point. Redemption in the world of Port Charles isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. In this slow-burn Sunday story, we focus not on the headline moments of gunfire or ice-cold betrayal, but on the long road. The hours when Ava sits alone in her penthouse, thinking about daughter, choices, pain. The nights when she counts second chances, questions whether she deserves them. The days she wakes up and the one constant remains. She is Ava Jerome, the mob heir, the mother, the manipulator, the wounded woman, and now the candidate for something different. A major milestone in that journey came when Ava acknowledged that power, in and of itself, was empty. The flash drives, the murders, the pills, all the currency of her earlier life, had brought nothing but loss. She began to ask, what is the cost of being feared? Of being admired? Of being powerful? In the echo of her daughter's heartbreak, of Sunny's contempt, she discovered the cost was enormous. And she realized that sometimes the price is too high. So she tried something she once thought weak: vulnerability. She stepped into rooms not as the predator, but as the person who might be hurt. Facing her scarred face, she no longer hid. She no longer believed her own press releases. She sat with guilt. She heard it. She wrestled with it. She accepted that she could no longer outrun it. And in that acceptance, change became possible. What defines her now is not just the attempts, but the willingness. Willingness to lose control. Willingness to be criticized. Willingness to fail again. Because redemption isn't a destination. It's a series of choices. For Ava, each time she chose her daughter over her scheme, each time she postponed the manipulation for humanity, she moved further from the Jerome legacy and closer to something resembling hope. Yet the road remains steep. In Port Charles, past sins don't vanish. They accumulate like unpaid debts. Enemies linger. Old partners and new threats both remind her that trust is fragile. But Ava's journey suggests that she is willing to earn it. She doesn't expect forgiveness. Maybe she doesn't deserve it. What she wants now is a moment of integrity. A moment where her reflection says, "This is me, and I tried." And that may be enough. When viewers look at Ava Jerome today, they see many faces. The seductress, the mob heiress, the mother, the fugitive, the prisoner, the scare survivor, the woman with cancer, the hopeful co-parent. But they also see someone in mid-transition, not fully redeemed, not fully condemned. And that in itself is powerful. Because in a soap world of grand gestures and quick arcs, her story reminds us that change is often slow, messy, uncertain. The final act for Ava may not yet be written. She may still walk a tightrope between the woman she was and the woman she hopes to become. She may still stumble. She may still use strategy instead of sincerity. But she also may choose compassion instead of conquest. She may let her daughter's light lead rather than her family's darkness drive. In that sense, Ava Jerome embodies a paradox, a monster craving mercy, a power broker longing for peace. Her path to redemption will not erase the past, but if she plays it honestly, it may redeem her future. And for audiences of General Hospital, that journey remains compelling because it is real. It is human. It is a slow burn. But sometimes the longest flames warm the deepest wounds. So as the credits roll tonight, and Ava stands at the window of her penthouse, staring out at Port Charles, we think, what will she choose next? Will she rebuild with her daughter? Will she walk away from crime? Will she finally relinquish the family legacy that defined her? Or will she pull one more trick, make one more play, and remind us that real change is harder than any heist or scheme? Whatever comes next, The long road to redemption for Ava Jerome is underway, and we are witnessing not just a character's transformation, but a lesson that the hardest person to convince is yourself, and the bravest thing you can do is try. The end is not yet here. The story continues. And for Ava Jerome, the slow burn of change may light the way to something she once believed impossible: forgiveness, peace, and a legacy not of power, but of purpose. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for all of your updates.